Hello boys and girls, this is our second opportunity to reflect on the gifts of the Holy Spirit, and this time we're going to think a little bit about the gift of understanding. And I want to tell you a story that comes from the Gospel by St. Luke that gives us a good understanding about the meaning of understanding. And I have a picture behind me here on the wall. Some of you might guess where it comes from, but I bet most of you don't. It used to be in the old cathedral in Longford before the fire, and it's the story about how Jesus met two of his disciples on the road to a place called Emmaus, just the day of the resurrection. And of course the two disciples thought that Jesus was dead. They had seen him die. They had been to visit his grave. Now there was a rumour going around, started by some of the women, that Jesus was alive and that they had seen him. But the two disciples didn't really believe that. They had left Jerusalem very early in the morning, and they were walking along really very sad because Jesus was very special for them. And they met this stranger on the road, and he came up and he asked them, "What were you talking about while you were walking along the road?" And they started to tell him in really sad tones about Jesus and about how he had died. And they were surprised that he hadn't heard anything about it. And the stranger began to speak to them all about the scriptures, all about the Bible, and to explain how it was part of God's plan that Jesus would die and rise again. All the time they never recognized who he was. They saw him, they heard his voice, but they didn't understand. When they got to the place where they were going, Jesus was going to carry on going, because it was Jesus, I'm sure you've guessed. He was going to keep on going, but they invited him to come in and have a meal with them because it was getting on towards the end of the day. And while they were sitting at the table, Jesus blessed the bread. You can see it in the picture. And he began to break it and to give it to them. And the disciples suddenly realized, their eyes were opened, St. Luke tells us, and they recognized him in the breaking of bread. That's the gift of understanding. When they were walking along, they didn't know who he was. When they sat down at the table with him, they still didn't know who he was. But in the Eucharist, suddenly their eyes were opened. And there are lots of little ways in our lives where God opens our eyes and helps us to see things in a different way. We have to use our intelligence, of course. We have to find out the facts about things, and sometimes they don't always make sense to us. But if we ask for the gift of the Holy Spirit, the gift of wisdom, then our hearts will be opened, our eyes will be opened, and we see things the way God sees them. So I'm going to ask you again, as you prepare for your confirmation, don't forget to pray for the gift of the Holy Spirit, and pray especially for the gift of understanding. It's not about sums, it's not about spellings, it's not about history. It's about helping you to see life and to see your own life through the eyes of God.